of A Christmas Carol. Okay, so now this homework for the extended section is all around making sure that you are revising the poems and getting to know the poems really, really well. So as you can see here, we've got a few quotes. You've been given three quotes from different poems, and you are here to analyze them, and then you need to try and write your own comparative paragraph. Now, what you have here is that the quotes are around, or they have been chosen because it would help you write about the power of memory. So you might want to highlight that here. So as you are analyzing the quotes, you are thinking about the power of memory. And then on the other side, you would write your C petal for memory, comparing one of these poems to another poem or whatever you like. Now, I'm not going to do all the quotes in loads of detail, but I'm going to show you ways that you could go about analysing. So you've got, there was once a country I left as a child, but my memory of it is sunk line clear. Now, one of the things that you've got here, that if you've got a question around memory, that this would be a great quote to use to analyse. And the main thing that you have here is, first of all, you've got the fact that, but my memory of it is sunlight clear. You've got a bit of a metaphor to describe the power of this memory. So I'm just going to put here that this memory is powerful and is vivid. And it's really, like, I know that it says in there, but it's like clear, so that he can clearly remember it. Now, one of the things I would do is actually, by using this idea of the sun, okay, it links to nature. And we know that as soon as we have nature in poems, that is suggestive of something being powerful. So in the Emigre is all about the power of memory. The other thing that you might want to look at this quote is the fact that it uses the word my. Now, this is a possessive pronoun. And it doesn't say the memory, it says my memory. So what that emphasizes, that this is about a very personal experience, something that is important to them. Okay, so you can see I'm kind of like gathering ideas from the poem. Now, also, I might the question is about memory, and in this quote we've got the word memory, and memories are important. So I'm trying to think about why has Rumens, now remember the poem is written by Rumens. Why has Rumens talked about memory? Well, memories shape your identity. They are actually those experiences that you've had. And I think this is important because in the poem Emigre, in particular, is the fact that this person has had to leave their house or their home, the homeland, left their homeland. They've left their homeland. And so all they have of their homeland is that memory, and that's why it becomes really, really precious. And also very individualistic as well, because our memory is individual. Our memories are personal. They are ultimately quite biased because they are our perspective. I'm just kind of gathering ideas what I think that quote might be saying. Now, I went to the second bit of the quote because it's got the word memories, it's got that metaphor of sunlight clear, so that's why I jumped there. But actually, the other thing that you might want to highlight on is, as I suppose, there once was a country. And I would say that that beginning to the poem is a bit of an allusion to a fairy tale. And I think that is also important because when we think about fairy tales are not real. And so this could suggest that maybe the memory that they have of their country is not fully true. So, because in the poem they are romanticizing the country. Now, we know that the country in this poem has that line, rolls its tanks, town rolls its tanks. You've got a semantic feel in the Emigre of the military, of war, tick field of war, and you have that through the word tanks. What was the other word? I can't remember right now at the top of my head. Well, let me just find it. I've got it here. I've got the word tanks. I've got the word time rolls its tanks. Tyrants, that's the word. I knew there was another word. Tyrants. And then I've got that idea of my language banned by the state. Banned. So that's a really nice semantic field to remember for the emigre. So we know that this is how she remembers the country, almost like romanticizing it, a fairy tale. But actually the reality is that she had to leave it because actually there's conflict and loads of things are not good. The other thing that I like about this poem as well, like just these first two lines, is the fact that she reminds us that she left it as a child. Now, when you leave something as a child, number one, that suggests that you're being forced, but also your perceptions of things might be a bit warped. So what I mean by warped is they're not clear. So when you're a child, you don't fully understand the reasons that things, why things happen. So I think it's really important that she's chosen to use the word child to emphasize that there's maybe something not ultimately like totally true about the memory that she has. But it's important because it shows that love for her country, where she comes from, that sense of nationality. Now, you might wish to pause the video now, and you are meant to try and do the other two quotes. Okay, so if you pause the video now, you do the other two. I'm going to do something with them in a second, so then you can add to your ideas. Okay, so pause the video now. All right, so now I've got Remains. Now Remains, again, is a poem about memories because you need to remember. So first of all, I'm going to write who wrote the poem. So Remains is written by Simon Armitage. And it's important about, this poem is definitely about memory because in this poem is the one where the soldier is haunted by the memories of the person he shot, the looter he shot, okay? And he's haunted because he doesn't know whether that person was armed or not. And actually what this quote does is it really reminds us of that sense that memories are so, again, really powerful because they make him feel guilty. The soldier is suffering from PTSD. And this line is a brilliant line because this line is an allusion to Macbeth. Now, Macbeth kills King Duncan, and his wife, Lady Macbeth, also helps him in the process. Now, Lady Macbeth, like throughout the at the end of the play, she like can see blood in her hands, and she's like, out damn spot. She can see the king's blood, and because she can see the king's blood, it's not real. She's imagining it in her hands. That shows that she's overridden with guilt. So this line shows actually, like ultimately linking it back to memory, is that this is making him feel an overwhelming sense of guilt and remorse. Lady Macbeth at the end of the play kills herself because she can't live with that guilt. And you've got, like, look at this contrast between his and my. So you've got his and then mine. These are pronouns as well. And what that shows is that you've got like the looter's life and his own, and that shows that conflict and that internal conflict as the soldier feels responsible for the death of this person. Him and I, like you've got that conflict, that separation. You've also got that repetition of bloody, which shows that memories of like traumatic events are really powerful and are really strong. And then you've got that idea of hands. Now, hands definitely links to that idea of responsibility. Okay, so you might have other ideas, you might want to add some more. Okay, so then I'm going to do Kamikaze. Now, Kamikaze is by Garland. Okay, so you always want to remember who wrote the poems. And this is the one where you have a pilot that does not, so he does not complete his suicide mission. You need to remember kamikaze pilots were pilots that were expected to crash the planes and die with their planes onto enemy ships. So there's something called Pearl Harbor, and that's where it happened. And then he does not complete his mission. And then when he comes back, he is marginalized. He's ostracized by his family. Okay, because he has brought dishonor to the family. Okay, now, and he says here, and sometimes she said he must have wondered which had been the better way to die. Now, I've chosen this quote from memory here because one of the things that you need to remember is that the poem uses multiple perspectives, and one of the perspectives that he uses, and that's to show that generational. Like, the first perspective is the pilot, and then we see that the poem is being actually told or narrated from the pilot's daughter's perspective. And this is important because this is the memory that the daughter has of her father. And the memory that she has of her father is that she can see that he was really sad, okay? That his life after this was really awful. So it suggests that actually conflict affects individuals and families. What I like about this poem is that I wonder, you can almost say that what Garland is trying to do is to break this generational criticism of the grandfather. Like, the daughter's narrative is there to break that generational trauma, almost, I would say. Like, she's telling the story of her father, the pilot, and she's telling us so that we feel sorry for the pilot. And she's telling this to her own children, to the pilot's grandchildren. So telling the story to the younger generation. So maybe so that then the younger generation do not ostracize people. But ultimately, this, I suppose, is that memory of treating her dad in this way, of ostracizing him, also affected her, or the speaker of the poem, affected by memory. Memory of not loving his dad and mistreating his dad almost like all the adults did. Okay, so guys, you've done a tiny bit of revision here with the quotes, and I suppose what you want to do next is you want to decide how are you going to compare two poems for memory. Now, you can use these three, or you can use one of them and compare it to another poem. Remember that when you are comparing, you're doing like the hanger. Okay, so you want to be thinking about like what do both poets do, but remember your focus here is memory. So you want to make sure that you're writing about memory. Okay, so you would do that on the other side of the homework. Put it here. So if you did your hanger, choose your two poems. Okay, do a bit of a plan. Have a quote for each, and remember how you write this. So remember that you are saying, so both, I'm just going to start it for you, but you guys will finish it. So both poet 1 and poet 2 present ideas of memory as. Are they saying that memories are strong? Are they saying that memories are weak? What are they trying to say? and then you put the word because. Try to explain it. Because. Okay? Then you focus on poet 1 in poem 1. So then you put the title of the poem, explores, and then you are going to be more detailed. Explores memory as, because, and then hopefully that's your point. Now try to make your point 3 sentences long, okay? The more you say, the better. And then you would do your evidence. In the poem, it says, okay? And explain. This shows. Why have you chosen that quote, and how does that link to your initial point? And then you're going to do a technique, and then you're going to do analysis. So, poet 1 uses. What technique do they use? And then you're going to analyze. To create. To emphasize. And then you're going to do another TA on that poem. Okay, and hopefully maybe even 3. Okay, so again, poet 1 uses to create, to emphasize. It might be the word. It might be structure. You might say poet 1 contrast the beginning with the end. And then you do it again, if you can. Okay, and then you link it back to your idea or to the context. If you've got the context, if you can't remember much of the context for the poets, like do make sure that you make that link by linking it to society maybe. So poet 1 is commenting on what aspect of society. And then because you're comparing the poems, you need a connective. So connective. So whether you're saying that they're similar or different, connective, and then you do PETATATAL for your poem 2. Now, one of the things that you might want to do to get a better comparison question, as you're doing this, every now and then mention how it compares to the other poem. Okay? So, good luck with that, Year 11. Have a real go. Remember, for your PPEs, you will be doing paper 2 and you will be comparing poetry.